Joining me now to weigh in is retired Lieutenant Colonel Sargis Sangari, along with retired Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer and former Adjunct General of the Arizona National Guard, Michael McGuire. Gentlemen, thank you for your service to the country and thank you for being here. Mr. Sangari, Psaki emphasized, well, he seemed to be setting up a narrative, alleging that only some Americans want to come home. As Afghans are clinging to the outside of airplanes, falling thousands of feet to their death, the idea that anyone wants to stay under Taliban rule is, of course, on its face absurd. Do you believe this may be Biden's attempt to set up a narrative to blame our own citizens when he leaves them behind?
Obviously, that's what's going to happen because they're going to say you didn't register with the State Department, so that's the reason probably why you did not get evacuated. Unfortunately, the people who are already registered are not being given an opportunity to abandon the battlefield that he's living among. That's where the issue is, crux of it. You have to ask the question, was this done on purpose? A reasonable person can get to a point to ask that. And I hope after post-mortem sets, and unfortunately that's what we're talking about now because they're trying to pull out, the question has to be asked from everybody who comes up in front of a hearing, was this done on purpose to clarify why we are where we are today? Because at the level of incompetency that they have progressed is very difficult. And I think part of the process is also because of the micromanagement of them trying to control everything from the narrative there, to include the fact that you have different lists from the commanders on the ground having a different list than what state is saying you have to execute.
Yeah, it's hard to believe people could be this stupid. Colonel Shaffer, Biden has set our nation up to follow the Taliban's deadline and remove U.S. troops in Afghanistan by August 31st. Recently, Biden putting us in this position of weakness. This is a recent development, kowtowing to terrorists. If he does this for a ragtag group of jihadists, what do you think he's going to do to China or to Russia?
Well, that's the thing. And Chris, he didn't kowtow. He armed them and has given them a great platform. The reason you're seeing the Taliban doing what they're doing right now, they're using Biden for their own propaganda purposes. Joe Biden is a dupe. And let me be very clear on this for everybody to understand. China is there already. China has 2 copper mines. They're planning to exploit all the rare earth minerals, by the way, we should have been exploiting. Obama killed an effort to commercialize the access to Afghanistan that the Pentagon was doing. So we have, the Democrats have a record of not only destroying our ability to maximize the benefit of Afghanistan by having exploitation of the resources, giving it to China now. Chris, he's actually given these people military force armaments, which will be sold to the Chinese and other enemies, and allows them now to challenge our Pakistani ally more vigorously. And I'm not a fan of the Paks, but they're going to be troubled by Biden's given the Pakistanis. And come the 31st of August, I think we're going to have a hostage situation that's going to make 1979 look like a cakewalk.
No kidding. I'm right there with you, and that's my biggest fear. General McGuire, the Pentagon and the White House have confirmed that several hundred U.S. troops have already begun to withdraw from Afghanistan before civilians are evacuated. Isn't this exactly how we got into this mess to begin with, pulling out our security forces before the civilians were evacuated?
Well, thanks, Chris. I agree with your opening. Biden is completely derelict in his duty. As your other guests know, you can delegate all your authority, but none of your responsibility. He's completely responsible for this. I was on this show just a few weeks ago with you, Chris, when I said I can't have a serious debate with someone about border security if it's more difficult to get lunch in Los Angeles than it is to traffic young girls across the southwest border. Unfortunately, since we had that conversation, Mr. Biden and his administration has made this world less safe, has made our country less safe with this open border. Those 6,000 terrorists that were released from Bagram, I guarantee you they're going to exploit this open border, and we need to get very serious about it very quickly.
Colonel Sangari, as Colonel Shaffer was just alluding to, Biden has abandoned billions in military equipment in Afghanistan, leaving it in the hands of the Taliban, including 75,000 U.S. vehicles, 600,000 weapons, and over 200 planes. Now, who knew when Mr. Biden and his Democrats talked about Build Back Better, they were actually talking about America's enemies like the Taliban and China?
The Taliban is using that already. Oil started flowing from Iran to Afghanistan just yesterday. They have begun that process. It will stop for a couple of months because of the fighting. The issue becomes now that that technology is being given for oil and is being sold in other cases. So China already has their hands on our weapon systems that are interest to them. Iran has it, and also Russia. What is sad about the whole thing is, as NATO is leaving and we are departing with the U.S. forces, Tajikistan, which took the lead for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, being the presidential lead for 2021, is now resupplying the Northern Alliance or trying to fight back against the Taliban. So on one hand, the Iranians are selling oil, giving access for the Chinese through the Shanghai Cooperation Organization to be able to build the infrastructure if need be and buy equipment from the Taliban. And on the other hand, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is resupplying Northern Alliance. This has strategic implications on India. It has strategic implications even on our allies in Iraq, and in case of the Kurds, which are now moving oil from Kurdish North through Iran for the benefit of Iran into Afghanistan, which means that Iraq is next on the chopping list.
Good grief. Colonel Shaffer, Great Britain, Canada, France, they have ordered their military to rescue their civilians. Biden, of course, is refusing to do this, and I think it's because, he can hide civilian hostages or maybe killings in the headlines from a complicit press more than he can troops being killed. If that's not why you think he's doing it, what's your read on this?
Well, two reasons. First, the Democrats do not care about people, despite them talking about all the touchy-feely things that they, always talk about. Dignity, consideration, they don't. This is obvious. But let's be clear on what's going on. They will not make that deadline. Members of Congress have visited. Seth Moulton, a Democrat who I know and meet, I don't agree with him on everything, but he's went over there and he's correctly assessed we're not going to be out of it by the 31st. I believe, Chris, they're underestimating between 20 and 25,000 people that are still there right now. They're not actually almost done. They're nowhere near done. People are getting out. Two categories of special operations are in there right now. Private special operations is costing, I hear, between $6,000 and $7,000 per person to be basically pay for your own rescue. There are people over there doing that. I'm getting intel out of that right now.
Wow.
And we have units, Chris, God bless them, who are out breaking orders, doing rescues anyway. I don't want to get in any details for obvious reasons, but there are elements of the military who have said, we're going to go out and do the right thing. They're actually doing the best they can without aviation. They cannot get helicopters. That's been denied them. But there are special operations units. I'll be able to talk about this more later on down the road when they're done, trying to do the right thing. And obviously, they may get in trouble for this. But imagine this, Chris. You have U.S. military units breaking regulations, breaking rules to do the right thing and go out and rescue American citizens to get them out of harm's way. This is unprecedented.
Our troops have more integrity and more care for the American people, certainly, than the occupier of the Oval Office. General McGuire, last question. Taliban leader in Afghanistan was freed under the Obama administration, now calling the shots in Afghanistan, dictating to Biden. In the meantime, Taliban has appointed an ex-Gitmo detainee as their acting defense minister. What lesson do we take away from this if our nation survives Biden? What lesson do we take away?
The lesson is we need peace through strength, and we have to exhibit strength. Biden is not exhibiting strength. We see China, Hamas, other groups like this taking a charge. It's embarrassing. As a service member, as Colonel Shaffer mentioned, I'm proud of those servicemen and women that understand they follow legal, moral, ethical orders. And if what they're asking to do is not moral and ethical, I pray that they'll be able to get our servicemen and our citizens out of there safely and quickly. Thank you.
Amen to that. Major General Michael McGuire, Lieutenant Colonel Sargis Sangari, and Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer. Gentlemen, thank you for your service and your time. Still to come, former Trump Deputy National Security Advisor KT McFarland joining me to weigh in on Biden's betrayal of Americans and our allies in Afghanistan. Stick with us.